Ukraine.
Sure.
First, do you have any new assessment of the status of the ceasefire?
Sure. Well, the Ukrainian government and Russian-backed separatists exchanged some prisoners over the weekend. The United States remains troubled by the continuing violations of the ceasefire around Debaltseve, the coastal city of Mariupol, and other locations in eastern Ukraine, all of which lie beyond the ceasefire line agreed to by all sides in Minsk in September and again in February. The OSCE has also confirmed that ceasefire violations continue and that the Russia-backed separatists still have not allowed OSCE monitors access to Debaltseve and other areas.
With the Ukrainians now saying that they cannot withdraw their heavy arms, which would apparently be a violation of the Minsk agreements. Well, first, would you consider that a violation of Minsk agreements? They're saying that it's because they continue to receive fire.
Well, I think we need to remember the context here, Elliot. Obviously, in terms of withdrawal of arms and moving back and de-escalating, a large percentage of that and the needs are from the Russian-backed separatist side. They're in a country that is not their own, that is a sovereign country. And so that is where we have the greatest concern. I would also remind everybody that exactly a year ago on Sunday, the people of Ukraine cast off an authoritarian regime and chose a future based on democracy, free trade, and rule of law. For these actions, Russia occupied and attempted to annex a sovereign country's territory. And that, since then, that's left more than 5,000 people dead and displaced several 100,000 times more. There are many times over the course of the last several months where Ukraine has even put in place ceasefires where they've abided by it, and the Russian side has not. The Russian-backed separatists have not. And they need to protect themselves. I think their preference certainly is to see both sides abiding by the ceasefire.
I understand all the context that you just raised, but I guess so you would say that the decision by the Ukrainian government is justified to maintain the presence of their.
They're defending their own sovereign country. They have not shown an unwillingness to abide by the ceasefires in the past.
Did you say overthrew an authoritarian regime? The former regime was authoritarian and not elected?
Well, Said, I think you know the history here.
I
Do we have any
understand.
more
I-
on
no, I
Ukraine?
mean,
We're moving
I'm
on.
just-
Thank you.
yeah.
Go ahead, Pam.
Secretary Kerry, in his weekend comments, talked about raised the possibility of more sanctions against Russia. In light of these latest developments and the fact that it does not appear there has been a satisfactory pullback by pro-Russian forces, is there a stepped-up timeline on when these possible sanctions may come through?
Well, as you mentioned, the Secretary did talk about this a bit this weekend. As we've also talked about, Russia and the separatists are only complying in a few areas selectively, not in Debaltseve, not outside of Mariupol, not in other key strategic areas. This is clearly unacceptable. We have a range of options that remain on the table. If this failure continues, there will be further consequences, but I'm not going to put a timeline or a date on that.
You said that the separatists are not in their own country. What did you mean?
Well, I think we've seen Russian-backed separatists backed by the country of Russia with equipment, with support coming in and victimizing people around eastern Ukraine. That's what I was referring to. Any more in Ukraine? Libya? Okay, whoa, we have a lot.
Just, I just want to.
And there are Russians who are supporting them.
It's your position that the ceasefire, although it is still being violated, can still pave the way for a political resolution to this?
Our focus remains on pursuing a durable solution through diplomatic means. As you know, there's going to be a discussion, a dialogue, I should say, happening tomorrow between France, Germany, Ukraine, and Russia and Paris.
But based on this agreement?
Yes.
And the original Minsk
Yes.
agreement? So it's not a lost cause?
Correct.
Really. All right.